If you've ever traveled to Japan, chances are you've eaten ramen at least once. Whether it's inside a busy train station or on a quiet street corner late at night, you see those glowing lanterns. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's served piping hot. You sit down and you're eating almost immediately. Because ramen is everywhere in Japan, most people assume the obvious. Ramen must be an ancient, traditional Japanese food, right? Probably as old as sushi or tempura. Wrong. Actually, on the timeline of Japanese history, ramen is shockingly young. Compared to the true elders like udon or soba, ramen is basically the new kid on the block. But the most interesting thing about ramen isn't how old it is, it's how fast it changed. In a relatively short time, ramen went through a crazy evolution, branching out into countless styles and forming a surprisingly complex system. In this video, I'm not here to tell you which shop serves the best bowl. We are going to dig into the mystery of its origins to understand how ramen ended up the way it is today. Before ramen ever appeared, Japan already had a deep noodle culture. Udon, soba, somen. These have been around for ages, but their role was completely different from ramen. Traditional Japanese noodles are usually gentle. The broths are light, the noodles are softer. The goal isn't intensity, it's comfort and balance. In a traditional Japanese meal, rice is the main character. Noodles were just the supporting cast. Ramen didn't grow naturally out of that system. It was a gatecrasher. It entered an already established food culture as something entirely new. That ramen's real starting point is tied to the moment Japan opened its doors. In the mid-19th century, port cities like Yokohama and Kobe opened up to foreign trade. Chinese merchants and laborers arrived, bringing their own food traditions. And they brought something the Japanese had never seen before: Chinese wheat noodles. For the Japanese diners at the time, the shock wasn't the flavor, it was the texture. These noodles were firm, springy, and chewy, completely different from the soft udon they were used to. Japanese cooks wanted to replicate this. They tried changing the flour ratio, they tried changing the water, they ran countless experiments. But no matter what they did, they couldn't get that specific bite. The reason was simple: they were missing one crucial step. They didn't realize there was a secret ingredient, a mystery that wasn't fully solved until the early 20th century. Japanese noodle makers finally realized that the springy texture didn't come from the chef's hand technique. It came from adding an alkaline substance to the dough, what we now call Kansui. When Kansui hits the flour, it changes the chemical structure of the dough. The noodles become firmer, elastic, and turn that characteristic yellow color. Most importantly, this wasn't about feeling anymore. It became science. It could be measured, adjusted, and controlled. By the 1920s, Japan developed artificial Kansui. This meant noodle quality no longer depended on a single master craftsman. It could be standardized. From that moment on, ramen had the tools to be mass-produced and copied everywhere. In 1910, a shop called Ken opened in Asakusa, Tokyo. It wasn't the first to serve Chinese noodles, but it's in every history book for one reason. They created the format. Ken did something brilliant. They took those chewy alkaline noodles and paired them with a soy sauce broth that Japanese people were already familiar with. It wasn't too heavy, it had depth, and it was affordable. This bowl was no longer a foreign novelty. It became a daily meal. Because it was consistent and easy to understand, ramen started moving out of the port cities and into the everyday lives of regular people. But the moment ramen truly conquered the nation was actually after World War II. Japan was in ruins. Food was scarce. To prevent mass starvation, the United States began shipping massive amounts of wheat and flour to Japan. The government encouraged people to eat wheat products as a substitute for rice. In this specific historical context, ramen became essential. It was fast, it was cheap, and most importantly, it was filling. It didn't require complex preparation, just hot broth and noodles could sustain a worker for a full day. Ramen spread from the cities to the residential areas, industrial zones, and train stations. For the Japanese people of that era, ramen wasn't just new, it was a reliance, a source of fuel and comfort when life was hard. As ramen spread across the country, a fascinating phenomenon occurred: regional evolution. Why is Hokkaido ramen so oily? Why does Kyushu focus on pork bone? It wasn't just chef preference. In cold regions like the north, broths naturally became richer, with a thick layer of oil on top to trap the heat. In warmer regions, the ramen tended to be lighter and more balanced. You aren't just eating a bowl of noodles. You are tasting the climate and the rhythm of that specific place.
Let's look at Hakata in Fukuoka.
Their ramen is famous for a cloudy, creamy pork bone soup and extremely thin noodles. But why thin noodles? This wasn't a random choice. It was designed for speed. The customers there were busy fishermen and market workers. They didn't have time to wait 5 minutes for noodles to boil. So, the chefs made the noodles ultra thin so they could cook in just 30 seconds. But there was a problem. Thin noodles get soggy very quickly in hot soup. So, instead of serving a giant bowl, they served small portions and invented a system called kidama, the noodle refill. You eat the first batch quickly, and if you are still hungry, you shout kidama and get a fresh, firm ball of noodles dropped into your remaining soup. This was user experience design happening in a noodle shop 70 years ago. Aside from geography, there was another industrial revolution for ramen, the ticket machine. Appearing in the 60s and 70s, it looked like a small change, but it was huge. The shop owner didn't have to touch money anymore. The workflow became efficient. This meant chefs could focus entirely on the soup and noodles. This efficiency gave birth to the artisan era. By the 1980s, chefs started deconstructing the soup. A bowl of ramen is made of 2 parts, the stock and the tear. The stock provides the body and umami, using pork, chicken, or fish. The tear sets the direction, using soy sauce, miso, or salt. Chefs began blending different stocks, seafood with pork, chicken with vegetables, creating complex, layered flavors. This modular thinking meant ramen could be engineered and designed. This era of innovation also gave birth to completely new forms of ramen. One hot summer day, a chef named Kazuo Yamagishi, often called the god of ramen, decided to separate the noodles from the soup entirely. He served cold, rinsed noodles alongside a bowl of hot, concentrated dipping sauce. This was the birth of sukmen, or dipping noodles. It proved that ramen didn't even need to be a soup noodle anymore. The definition was expanding. Entering the 90s and 2000s, ramen shifted again. It wasn't just about filling your stomach anymore. It became something people debated, ranked, and obsessed over. TV shows featured ramen battles, turning chefs into rock stars. Chefs developed signature styles. Apprentices opened their own shops, adding their own twists, forming traceable family trees. Ramen evolved from a simple meal into a world of styles and traditions. At this stage, it wasn't accidental anymore.
It was a system that was constantly splitting, adapting, and reinventing itself. As it got more complex, we needed a new word. K, or lineage. People started tracking which shop learned from which master. But once we start talking about ikiai, or Jiro style, we are entering a very deep rabbit hole. This involves apprentices, branch shops, rivalries, and questions of identity. That is way too much for a single video. So, we will save the stories of the ramen clans for a future episode. Looking back at the whole story, ramen didn't become diverse because it was ancient. It became diverse because it was late. Because it didn't have centuries of tradition holding it back, ramen was free. Free to absorb new technology, free to use American flour, free to adapt to local habits. From an imported Chinese noodle to a survival food, to a designed artisan craft. Every bowl you eat in Japan today is the result of history, environment, and human choices working together. If you are interested in Japanese culture, especially the hidden stories inside everyday things, make sure to subscribe. In the next episode, we will dive deep into the war of the ramen clans. See you next time.